Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there. Well, that's what caught my ears, right? Is obviously the Alejandro Kirk DH role was a significant one last year. I guess I'm just wondering, is there any optimism that he can have a bigger workload as a catcher this year? And then also with George Springer and the move from center field to right field, is do you think that the management group here is anticipating that is enough of a workload reduction that he can play right field for 150 games next year? Or are we hoping that he
Yeah,
is not a DH at all, other than
I
on rare occasions next year or this
I
season?
think the plan right now is that George Springer is going to play. I think he's going to play 99% of his games in right field. I guess in a late game situation where you've taken Kiermaier out or something like that for a pitch
Sure.
hitter or something happen, then maybe. But everybody I've spoken to in the organization has said that George Springer is going to be their right fielder every day. And when the Jays signed him, we had Steve Sparks, the Astros broadcaster, on our show on Sportsnet. And he was very clear. He said not only is George Springer a better right fielder than he is center fielder, from talking to George, it's pretty obvious he likes playing right field. None of this came as a surprise, I don't think, to George. I think he realized that this move was going to be made. But it's an interesting point, because there are days where you'd think you probably want to DH George Springer. Then what do you do? It's a good option to have, I guess, having a guy like Brandon Belt around to spell off somebody. But I still think there may be another move to be made with position players here.
The front office did go to great lengths to make sure that George Springer was out of center field,
Yes.
just trying to limit his wear and tear, obviously. How big for this team would a healthy George Springer be?
I think he's...
Because I don't think fans even really get how big that could be, right?
No, I think you're right. Listen, if you could conjure up 150 games out of George Springer, I don't know how many extra wins that would be worth for the Blue Jays, but they're just a better team when he's in the lineup. Everything makes sense when he's in the lineup. When he isn't in the lineup, stuff looks kind of out of kilter. And the other thing with George that I really realized last year is and this is probably, I don't know how this is going to hold up to analytics, but there's a dynamism about the way he goes about his business. I'm not a huge believer in saying that guys set the tone for a team, because, as my friend Kevin Barker says, if you can't hit the breaking pitch, it doesn't matter if the guy in front of you is the best player in baseball. Like, you're not going to be able to hit the breaking pitch, right? But I think it's noticeable when George Springer is on that team in general is more aggressive, right? And again, if they can get 150 games out of him, he'd be setting off fireworks at the Rogers Center. Because he's an impactful player for them. And I think it was Brandon Hyde last year when we were talking to him, and he was talking about George Springer, and he made a comment about, it was Brandon Hyde actually, made a comment about how there are leadoff hitters that get your attention right away if you're a manager or a pitcher or a catcher. And he said George Springer is one of that elite group that he gets your attention right away. The first at bat of the game is going to be a bitch. And I think there's something to be said for having a guy like that leading off.
He is so dynamic, and I sure am hopeful. Like, they did put so much effort into getting him into right field. So hopefully that is the cure to this injury problem we've seen the last couple of years.